What is up, fantasy fans? As always, I'm Shay from the channel Zachary Shay, and today I'm going to be bringing you my July wrap-up ranking and my August TBR. So the way I'm going to structure it is first we're going to go through my novels, and then I'm going to touch up on a little bit because it was a heavy manga comics month. So I'm going to touch up on comic and manga that I read this month. And then I'm going to give you some channel updates. So it's going to be on my writing updates and as well as the audiobook updates. You can use the, there will be timestamps. So you can kind of use that as your tool to navigate the video. And then at the end, I'll be giving my TBR to include whichever fantasy novels, comics, manga. It's all going to be one little segmented TBR thing. So first off, let's get right into the wrap up / ranking. So first off, I want to mention 2 books that I won't be including in the ranking, though I did finish them. I just got to say that they weren't for me. And those are Wild Skies and Arcoma. I really love the world building. I'll talk about Arcoma first. I really love the world building on Arcoma. In the first half of this book, I was all in. I did enjoy the main character, and I did really much enjoy the setting, so much so to the point where I'm really excited to read A Dirge for Cassius, which I believe he is relaunching sometime this year. Of the 2, I think I did prefer this one. There was a plot twist at the end of the book that did not work for me. It was definitely a weaker plot twist in my opinion, but I found that the general consensus, a lot of people liked that twist. The world, the creatures, the sort of sci-fi fantasy western vibe of it, I really, really loved. World building alone, I think Caleb Law is incredibly talented, and I do think most people should check it out, though it did not work for me in terms of that twist. It really, in my opinion, it did not work. And then Wild Skies, which this one, I really love K.E. Andrews' Hills of Heather and Bone. This, if you really love like Saturday morning cartoons or spaghetti westerns and you want that but with dragons, you'll love this. It just didn't work for me. There were a lot of plot beats that I kind of saw coming, and I was waiting for it to deviate a little bit, and it didn't really. But again, if you just want a fun Saturday morning cartoon and a cool Western vibe, then check it out. Arcoma, if you want a sort of grimdarky-esque, but not quite grimdark, but a sort of darker fantasy space Western, you need to check these books out. But for me, they didn't quite do it. And then now I want to get to The Wooded Midwinter by Susanna Clark. I'm including it in the wrap-up, even though it's like 60 pages with pictures in massive font. But yeah, this was a really magical story. I have long been a fan of Susanna Clark. I did like Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell quite a bit more than Piranesi. I know Piranesi's kind of been the internet's favorite of her writing, but I personally prefer Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell. I thought it was a much deeper, it just felt like a vast, expansive narrative. It felt like a long story. It felt like, I don't know, Piranesi, it was kind of just, I read it in an afternoon, and while it was good, it doesn't stay in my memory the way that Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell did. This, tonally, it matches Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell, this sort of like Fae-esque type of vibe to it, and I thought it was really, really good. I don't know if it's worth buying the hardcover for a story you'll read in 5 minutes, but if you can find it online, I definitely say check it out. I give it like, for its size and what it accomplished, I give this a solid 3.5 to 4 stars. All right. And then next up we have, actually this is a terrible ranking because I might put that over what I'm about to talk about. And that is Cold Days by Jim Butcher. This is book 14 in the Dresden Files. Really enjoyed the beginning. Some of the action segments lost me a little bit. Some of the people talk about the Dresden sexism and how it's, get through the first few books and then you'll be hooked. I never actually was that offended in the first few books, but lately, like post changes, I do feel offended more often. And I don't know, just some of it just really did not. Some of the comments about Molly that Dresden makes don't really work for me. I feel like I'm just spicy take after spicy take. Like, I'm usually the guy that loves everything he read that month, and this month was just kind of even the series I loved just weren't quite hitting the spot for me. That being said, Cold Days is still probably a 3.5 to 4 stars. It's right in the middle there because there were parts of this that were really, really excellent. I think Jim Butcher does the face stuff extremely well. As always, the relationships are amazing between Dresden and Waldo Butters, and even when he doesn't lean into the creepy aspects of it, Dresden and Molly actually have a really wholesome relationship. But then he'll say something along the lines of, I knew her since she was in Training Bras, and then I'm just completely turned off by it. And then my favorite book of the month, is it my favorite book of the month? It has to be Sorcerer's Legacy by Janny Wirtz. Now, here's what I'll say about Sorcerer's Legacy. Of all the Janny Wirtz books, this is probably the weakest, but the weakest Janny Wirtz book is still better than a lot of authors' best books. I would not rate this as highly as Curse of the Mistwraith or Master of White Storm, but as a solid 4 stars. You follow this girl, this woman who, in the aftermath of her husband's demise in this war, she finds out that she's pregnant with his baby, and then she gets offered a chance to go through this time portal to, well, I don't want to get into too much of it. I've made a short about it. I may give it its own dedicated review. I thought this one was a ton of fun. It didn't have, Janny herself has called it of all her books, this is the most beach read type book that she's written. This isn't one where you have to put your thinking cap on throughout the whole thing. You can kind of just chill and relax and read a fun sort of swashbuckling-esque story, though the stakes I think are a little bit more present than that. But, I would not rank it as highly as Master of White Storm, but, Master of White Storm's probably my favorite standalone fantasy book that I've read in many years. So yeah, very impressed with this. With a lot of my prose reading that wasn't really hitting the spot for me, my refuge this last month was in manga and comics, mainly comics, but I'm going to talk about manga first. So my goal was to get to volume 100 of One Piece. I got to volume 103. Wano is so freaking cool. It's been an absolute blast being back with the Straw Hats, and I will probably finish One Piece this month. Well, we'll get into that when we get into the TBR, but yeah, I think Luffy's whole journey in Wano and just the whole liberation stuff going on. I mean, if you know One Piece, you know the formula: goes to an island, liberates it. But Oda finds a way to breathe new life into that formula every single time. It never feels repetitive, even though if you do look at it if you look at it, you're like, okay, admittedly it is repetitive, but the way he tells that story of Straw Hats arrive on an island, get to know the people, liberate the people, he's able to follow that exact same formula almost every single arc, and it is brilliant every single time. That is the mark of a great storyteller, where you know what's coming up and he still finds a way to make blow your mind with it. So I loved One Piece. I also read volume 17 of Chainsaw Man and volume 24 of Jujutsu Kaisen. A lot of crazy stuff happened in this one. A lot of stuff with Sukuna. Chainsaw Man, a lot of craziness. And then I read volume 1 of Kagurabachi, which I thought actually had a ton of promise. I'm really captivated by this one. I like the characters, I like the world, I like the magic. And then I also read volume 7 and 8 of Vagabond. Vagabond's great. Vagabond's really, really excellent. It took me a while to get there to really like it. I think once you get to the character of Sasaki Kojiro, who's like a deaf samurai, he can't hear. Once you get to the introduction of his character, the series to me really starts to shine even more so, because you're seeing sort of the juxtaposition between Miyamoto Musashi, who is practice and willpower and the lengths he will go to for greatness, where Sasaki Kojiro is the one gifted with natural talent. He doesn't try as hard as Miyamoto Musashi. He is just gifted with this innate ability that eclipses almost every single other person in this world. And And I think seeing the juxtaposition between those two is fascinating. Sometimes Vagabond gets a little too fight heavy for me, but I think overall it is an amazing story. All right, let me just tell you guys, I had an absolute blast this month with my comics. I read all this. So let me just say, let me try to rank it. And if you're still here and you have any interest in comics, I'm going to make this as new comic reader friendly. Most of my subscriber base is fantasy book readers and just fiction readers in general. So I read this massive tome, Jack Kirby's The Fourth World. This is where we get the introduction of characters like Orion, Mr. Miracle, Darkseid. It all starts in the pages of Jimmy Olsen and then goes into Forever People, New Gods, Mr. Miracle. Me personally, I thought all series had their high points and all are worth the read. That being said, I do think New Gods and Mr. Miracle are the strongest series, with the exception of the 2 or 3 Mr. Miracle issues where they like try to distance themselves from the New God lore, which is like near the end of the run, and they kind of course correct in the last issue. But yeah, this is brilliant. This is Jack Kirby's magnum opus. This is him forming a sort of mythos that, while dated in some areas, the imagination and the care that Jack Kirby went into to making this massive space opera epic. It's flawed. If he would have had more time to flesh it out, we could have gotten a really, really amazing story for the ages. And I think even without that, we still got a spectacular story. And we've seen other take the reins, Walt Simonson's Orion, Tom King's Mr. Miracle, and just do marvelous things with these characters. And it all started on the pages of The Fourth World, which is to include the 4 series, Superman's best pal Jimmy Olsen, the Forever People, Mr. Miracle, and the New Gods. And then I read this as a sort of comic book buddy read with Britain from the channel Some Okie Dude. We read Helen of Windhorn. I think both of us really loved the art. Bilquis Evely, she knocks it out of the park. She also did the art for Supergirl Woman of Tomorrow. She just completely killed it. And I actually did like the exposition in this. I really love Tom King's writing. I think he has amazing writing chops. His gift with the pen, his the way he uses the English language, I think he is one of the best in comics. But purely from a plotting and narrative viewpoint, I think there's like this modern day storyline where they kind of move around. Like the story that takes up most of the pages here is also a story that has been recounted in the modern day, and you see as people like follow this story. And the modern day storyline, just to me, didn't really justify itself. But the overall story about generational trauma and the weight of loss was really powerful in this. And I would give it like a 4 out of 5, whereas I would give The Fourth World, just off influence alone, it's looking at a 4.5 or higher, maybe possibly a 5 stars, even though it's got major flaws. It's just that influential. And then this was truly excellent, but it does have major flaws. Then we're going to get into the thing that took up most of my time this month, and I am talking about DC's Young Animal, an imprint of DC created by Gerard Way, lead singer of My Chemical Romance, where he launched multiple comics. He launched Doom Patrol, which is excellent and where you should start. He launched Mother Panic, which is about a girl growing up in Gotham. And this one, I think, has the most mass appeal, and it's really, really fun. It's kind of like Something is Killing the Children by James Tynion, but in Gotham. It follows this girl that was put in this boarding home that experimented on young children and gifted her with these abilities, but also did some terrible things. And it's about, she's causing a panic. It's Mother Panic is really freaking good, and it's got a lot of heart to it. And then Shade the Changing Girl, which is the spiritual successor to Shade the Changing Man from Vertigo Comics, but it completely stands on its own. You follow this one alien girl, or what really an alien woman, she's an avian, so she comes from this other planet where there's several different cultures, but the avian culture is kind of looked down upon, and she has the chance to harness what is called madness, which allows her to journey to Earth and inhabit another person's body, and she finds the body of Megan, this high school girl that, to my understanding, took a bunch of pills and then kind of like went brain dead at a party. And one thing I think is interesting is, yes, you have a flawed character in Shade, but Megan, the human girl whose body she takes over, is like despicable. Like, she's evil. Like, it's such a cool possession story because the human she's possessing is like actually like, this isn't just mean girl mean. This girl is like, would kill her parents if she could get away with it. Like, her parents live in fear of her, and her friends at school, like, they cry themselves to sleep thinking about the things Megan has done. So I thought that was interesting. Like, you have a possession story, but the person being possessed is the actual monster. And then Cave Carson has a cybernetic eye, which, if you like Dungeon Crawler Carl, you should probably give this a shot. I knew nothing about Cave Carson before this, and I think most people who have read this knew nothing about Cave Carson. Very obscure character. He has recently been widowed. Widowered? Is that a word? He's a widower. His wife has just passed. Him and his daughter are dealing with the fallout to that. And there's this weird underground multi-dimensional alien species in this organization, and this guy that wears what is definitely a Jason Voorhees mask and does crazy stuff, but it's really a story about a father and a daughter addressing the loss of a mother, of a wife, of the trauma that is there, of the things unspoken between them. And all of this culminates in Milk Wars. This whole imprint is known for being incredibly absurd, but I think it weds absurdism with a sense of emotional depth that you don't usually see in absurdism. You know, you have the idea of absurdism where things become so absurd that nothing matters. It walks that line so beautifully to where things almost don't matter, but they genuinely do. Once you get further and deeper into the story, you realize how much these characters matter to each other, but it never gives up on its absurdism. Let me show you a panel, and just to show you how crazy this comic is. If you don't want any spoilers, click away, but like, look how crazy that is. Like, and that's throughout the entire imprint. You have, maybe Mother Panic is the most grounded, but they're all extremely absurd. Doom Patrol especially is extremely absurd, and it just works really well. And then from Milk Wars, it spun off into a few other comics that I hope to read. I'll cover those in my TBR. And so I had a lot of fun with those. All right, and before I dive into my August TBR, I want to talk about my progress on the audiobook and my progress with Requiem, my novel. So the audiobook is done. It's with the author. There's a few credits I need to ask, and then we need to mail it out to the author's website guy, and then it's going to be on the author's website. I will come out with a video giving y'all the first couple chapters of it if y'all want to watch that, and there will be links to the author's website to purchase the audiobook. I'm really excited for you guys to listen to that. And it was a ton of fun and a ton of work to get it done, and I'm super proud of it. And then my own book, Requiem, Dreams of the Sleepless. I will be giving y'all a little soundbite from it at the end of this video, something I hope to do for the rest of my monthly wrap-up / TBR videos until the book comes out. And I will also be releasing, same day as this, the second chapter. I'm hoping to make a playlist of them. That way, if you ever want to go through and listen to the book, you can. The version that I'm putting out in these videos is not final. It is subject to change, but for the most part, it's pretty close to what I think final draft will look like. And speaking of final draft, where am I at on the final draft? So I finished the first act in terms of like fixing narrative beats, getting the language for the most part where it needs to be. And now I'm just going through with a fine-toothed comb and catching any awkward dialogue, any prose that aren't quite hitting. So here's the thing. I struggle to talk about this because to me it sounds like I'm coming across as pretentious, but I just want to talk about what the expectations should be if you have an interest in Requiem, and where my mind is at in creating this. So Requiem is a very Lovecraftian, Malazan-inspired fantasy epic, but it's a standalone. It has multiple plot lines. I'm very, very adamant about having what I would consider prosaic, intentional prose. I really love reading that sort of prose style. I'm talking about the greats here: Janie Wirtz, Stephen Erickson, Robin Hobb. These are the type of authors. Christopher Rocchio. I love their language. I love their use of language. I love their dialogue. I love the way they use POV. In writing Requiem, I really want to evoke what my inspirations were. I really want the prose to be top notch, at least by my own standards. So, if you are into those prose styles, I can't promise that I will deliver that, me being a debut author, but I am hard at work ensuring that the prose do come across that way at times, that the dialogue is fresh. And it did not look like that in first draft, so it's taken a while to get there. But in the story of Requiem, I'm just going to give you a brief little plot summary, whatever. You follow, well, in the prologue, it's presented that this is the accounting of some character. It's implied that it's a godlike character. You may get more clarity on who it is that is actually recounting these events as the story progresses. But after that prologue, you get several third-person POVs. Each chapter will tell you, up front who the POV characters are going to be, and, the structure of the story and where it's taking place and what time period it's taking place in. Most of the narrative takes place in one night, the night of the Requiem. Dark elder powers are astir in the city of Larnia, capital of the Veyron Empire. Elder gods, primordial evils, and those that are... the dead are not staying dead. I'll leave it at that. And I will be releasing Chapter 2, and the prequel and Chapter 1 are up. And it's pretty finalized draft how it is now, though I will be getting beta readers and getting feedback from an author friend of mine, and that'll help me fine tune it. So this is not a finalized version, but if you have enough curiosity to want to see what I've been working on, feel free to check those out. You don't have to. It's just a way to keep myself accountable and keep myself fine-tuning because I fine-tune the chapters that are about to go up, that right before I record them, I look at them with a magnifying glass to make sure that they're coming across well. And even after I post them, I'm like, oh, there's a few things I would change. But, I really go hard on those chapters before I record them. All right, so enough of that. Let's get into my TBR. So what I'm currently reading is Return to Edan. I'm about 200 pages in, a little under 200. And does this stack up to the quality that I saw in Way of Edan and Prophet of Edan? Absolutely. This will probably be my favorite of the series. I really, really love... There's a character that gets introduced in this book, and I think her journey is really, really remarkable. I'm really loving this book so far. There's been a lot of booktuber authors in the space, and a lot of them are extremely talented. I will say I think Philip Chase is my favorite of the booktuber authors that I have read. I have not read Discovery. I have not read any of Tori Tekken's books, though I want to. But Philip Chase, and I don't mean that as a slight. I don't mean to be like the best of the booktuber authors. He's one of my favorite authors that I've read this year, period. Probably my third favorite. I have a video coming out ranking like my favorite series of the year, and I believe Philip Chase placed third, which is why I just know that off the top of my head. But yeah, I really, really love Philip Chase's work. I think he is remarkable. I think there is a passion for the story that comes through on every single page, and it's just such a blast being back with Orvindil and Imhar and Sequara. In my Way of Edan review, I mentioned that I wasn't that big a fan of Sequara. Prophet of Edan won me over for Sequara, and it took a character like Orvindil that I was just like, I liked him, but I wasn't in love, and I love Orvindil now. So that's the mark of an amazing author, and Return to Edan is looking like it's going to be the best of the bunch. And maybe it'll elevate him past third place. I don't know. Look out, Christopher. Look out, Janny. And speaking of Janny... Oh, wait. Before I speak of Janny, my audiobook that I'm currently reading is Blood Over Brighthaven. And guys, M.L. Wong, I have a tattoo of Sword of Kaigen. I have a tattoo of Masaki Matsuda. So M.L. Wong's writing obviously resonates with me. I love Sword of Kaigen. But Blood Over Brighthaven, I was worried she was she going to be able to knock it out of the park twice? I think she has. I'm on chapter 4, and it is blowing me away. I've heard mixed. I've heard some people love it. Some people weren't hot on it. if I were a betting man, I would bet on me absolutely adoring this book. Man, the first chapter, second chapter, every single chapter of this book so far has proven to be remarkable. I don't think she's wasted a single line. I don't think she's wasted a single word. I absolutely love M.L. Wong's writing style. I think it is reminiscent of a Robin Hobb wed with a Sanderson. Maybe I'm just making the Sanderson comparison because this is kind of a harder magic system that feels kind of in line with coding. Really loving it. Now, after I'm done with each of these books, what am I going to go on to read? So I did not read By Blood, by Salt last month. I really want to get to that. I'm pretty sure I will. And then I want to get to Fugitive Prince by Janny Wirtz. In fact, I plan to read Fugitive Prince and maybe Grand Conspiracy. I don't have it with me, but I think I'll probably read Grand Conspiracy. And if I can, biting off more than I can chew again this month. But it's a small bite. Come on. I mean, I really want to get in the habit of catching up to series. I don't want to start a whole bunch of series that I'm not finishing. That's why I want to read 2 more Words of Light and Shadow book. That's why I want to just hurry up and finish the Worm and Lawn books. And this is the 4th one in that setting, While Darkness Gathers. So I'm hoping to finish those both. I'm hoping to finish this series and put a good dent in Wars of Light and Shadow, because I don't like having the feeling of having these series hanging open. And, I know I mentioned I'll read By Blood, by Salt this month, but, The Hunt for Jackals, that's just one other book. I don't mind starting a series if it's just 2 books. And then my audiobook for when I'm done with Blood Over Brighthaven, I think I want to read The Iliarth War on audio. I was originally going to read it like how I read Lord Falsbane, physical analog. It got lost in the mail. And then I ordered another one, and it won't get here till mid-August. And I'm currently in the process of moving to an apartment closer to my university. So odds are it'll show up here, and I won't be here. And my sister will have to mail it to me. So I'll probably do Iliarth War on audio. And if I have time, I'm hoping to listen to Bury Our Bones in the Midnight Soil. I saw this at Walmart, actually, and I was like, oh my gosh, signed edition. I'm buying this. And my girlfriend goes, this looks like a girly book. This doesn't look like something you'd be into. I go, no, I've had my eye on V. Schwab for a little bit. This is the girly I like. I need to check this out because I have more than mild curiosity for V. Schwab. And Lainey goes, oh, well, yep, I'm getting it too. So we both walked out with our own signed copy from Walmart. So I'm hoping to get to this on audio because I heard that Caitlin from Arcane is the voice actress for this, which is awesome. And then, of course, I'm hoping to finish One Piece. I'm on volume 104. There's 109. There's 109 volumes out currently in English, at least that are able to be bought in the States. So, and I have them all in physical, so I'm just going to power through and finish all those. All right, and one of my main priorities, so I mentioned Young Animal, I mentioned Milk Wars. I want to finish the sort of spin-offs of Milk Wars. And you know how they had Cave Carson has a cybernetic eye? Well, now it's Cave Carson has an interstellar eye. Instead of Mother Panic, it's Mother Panic AD. And instead of Shade the Changing Woman, or Shade the Changing Girl, it's Shade the Changing Woman. So these are kind of like the season 2s of each of these. This is following them all after the events of Milk Wars. And then Eternity Girl, which has spun out of Milk Wars. I actually really love the parts with her in Milk Wars, and I've heard that a lot of people really love Eternity Girl. I've heard that it's one of the Young Animal books that stands on its own the best. So I'm excited to get to this one. I've seen a lot of 10 out of 10 reviews, and I've seen some like 2 out of 10 reviews. Usually when something's that polarizing, I actually tend to really love whatever it is. But we'll see. And then Collapser, which is kind of like the panned one. Like, this is the one that most people say is not that good, but I'm excited to check it out. It's about a guy with a black hole in his chest. And then Bug, The Adventures of Forager, which is a character from Jack Kirby's Fourth World from the New Gods. But he gets his own series, and it's a Young Animal series. And it's got this super cool art by the All Red team. Yeah, it's just, I absolutely love this art style. I think it's, what am I even showing y'all? Yeah, I think it's brilliant. So I'm going to read all the Young Animal stuff. And then I also, but the Brian Michael Bendis run on Daredevil, The Man Without Fear, over at Marvel Comics. I have 2 omnibuses of it. This is number 1. This is number 2. I don't want to commit to a ton of comics outside of Young Animal, but I did start Daredevil, so I'm gonna finish it. That's my thing. I'm gonna start finishing stuff. But yeah, that's all my TBR. I really, I don't want to bum people out by saying that my reading month didn't really work for me. But I also just want to be transparent and say, hey, these, not every month, there was a time where I was giving everything 4s and 5s, and it's just. That's not where my headspace is at, and that's not where my reading's at. But I really loved a ton of these comics, and I'm really, really loving Return to Dan and Blood Over Brighthaven. They're looking like both are 5 stars, and I'm always excited to get back into Janny. I haven't read a single book from this world that is not a 5 stars. Master of White Storm was 5 stars. Sorcerer's Legacy is the only book that I don't give her a 5-star on. And even then, like, the amount of enjoyment for the page count you get is just a hell of a deal. So I'm excited to get to more Janny, to get to more Philip. Sorry, Dr. Chase. Just excited to get to all of their work. So if you feel like it, comment down below. Let me know what you think of anything that I've covered if you've read it before, or if you want to let me know what your TBR is going to be for the following month. I would love to hear your TBRs and what your reading months was like. I'm always, checking the comments. And yeah, guys, peace. Sylvian Barteus, a Veyran Rialan bard, termed Larnia as the metropolis of the restless, which sounded far less morbid than Osnia Shorn's description in her poem Ode to Dreams. And I have walked these streets and come to know them. No dreams come in that den of sin, naught but waking nightmares in the city of the damned.